House and batteries for my remote controls, both in the living room, the bedroom, and the studio where I have televisions going here. I will need 3 TVs before it's all over with the Caps headed off to play the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'll be in Toronto broadcasting next week. Lord knows where the Wizards are going to be. I know where the Orioles are going to be, back and forth. Kevin Broom's going to be wherever the Wizards are. He is one of the folks that follows the Wizards around, back to the days of the Bullets and the throwback name for SB Nation's Bullets Forever blog. You can find him out at Bullets Forever on Twitter, as well as through his personal Twitter at Broom_Kevin. We welcome Kevin Broom, one of our defending champions and Wizard followers around. By the way, I love the picture up on the Bullets Forever Twitter you have, Kev, right? Because it's the jerseys, when they look like the old Bullets, that's when I really dig them, you know? So whenever they're wearing something that looks like something Elvin Hayes or Wes Unseld would wear, that's when I really dig the Wizards.
Yeah, I think it's good to do the throwback to, when the team actually was successful, and that's when they wore that kind of jersey, that's for sure.
Well, they can only hope for a rematch with the Golden State Warriors sans Rick Barry, as we had many, many years ago, and there are no Supersonics anymore.
I don't know. I think we might like facing Rick Barry at this point.
Yeah, I saw him throwing those free throws, from between the legs in that insurance commercial or whatever it is. That's how effective an advertising tool it was. I don't even know what it was for. Probably for some miracle drug, I'm sure. But, the Wizards have been a little bit of a miracle drug this year, right? I mean, on the cusp of doing something they haven't done, but they have to advance for this to be successful. A first-round facer next week would be as devastating for them as it would be for the Caps at this point.
Yeah. I mean, the Wizards, like you say, they could win 50, and if they go out in the first round, it's going to feel like a real disappointment. So, but that said, I think that they would be really solid favorites against whoever they're going to face in the first round. Okay. And then after that, it's kind of a we'll see, but...
Do you have favorites here? I mean, I know when the Caps season was winding down, I felt like I really wanted them to play in Toronto because I felt like spending a couple of days in Toronto because it's awesome and it's the hockey capital of the world. I didn't want to go to Boston, but it had nothing to do with winning and losing in matchups. I mean, I think the Capitals should beat whomever they're matched up with, and I guess you feel similarly, as the Southeast Division champions, that whoever they get in the first round, they'll be favored, and it will be a favorable matchup. Do you see anything as particularly easier for them?
I wouldn't say easier. I mean, I guess my slight preference would be to face Atlanta, who's currently slotted in the 5th slot, just because I think the Wizards, I don't think that Atlanta is all that good. So I would rather face them. I think Milwaukee, they've got the Greek Freak, and he's a guy who concerns me a little bit, and there's nobody on Atlanta who concerns me like that. And I think that Wall would absolutely destroy whoever Atlanta runs out there at point guard. Schroeder's not that good. So I think that he would have a good opportunity to do some good things against them. And, Dwight Howard he's having a really good season, but I don't think that he's, particularly dominant against Gortat. So, yeah, I think I'd have a slight preference for Atlanta, but really any of the teams they're likely to face in the first round, the Wizards will be really solid favorites against them, So I'm not too concerned about who they get in the first round.
It is a weird time of the year for all these games, right? Some teams clawing a little bit like Chicago and in Miami, Indiana trying to get there. And then, Monday night, there was no Orioles, there were no Caps. And my wife's like, hey, the Wizards are on, and Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives is on. And I said, well, Wall and Porter aren't playing. Well, then why put it on, And I know This has been sort of the age-old argument here, especially the last 8 weeks where teams have been taking nights off and guys off. What do you think about that, Kevin? As a fan, I mean, I know you buy your tickets like all the rest of us. It feels a little unfair, but I understand it from a competitive nature.
Well, I mean, just real quick on why to tune in last night. I mean, what you ended up seeing was Bradley Beal have a terrific game, and so, and he sort of carried the team to the win. I know what you're saying, though, that a lot of fans want to see the stars, and that's a tough thing because the rest of the NBA season, it's long and it's a really grueling thing. Those back-to-backs, the 4 and 5 nights, those are really tough on players' bodies. And teams have been doing a much better job of monitoring the workload, monitoring the health, and they have these scores, composite scores, monitoring their sleep, all that kind of stuff, to try to keep players healthy. And the Wizards have been very successful with that this year. And so this late in the season with literally nothing left to play for, they're cemented in that 4th spot. you might as well let guys who are sort of in that range where they're getting close to the sort of the red zone where an injury might happen, is you go ahead and sit them down and let them rest. And I think the solution is something for the league to think about. One would be shortening the season. That's tough because of the money. And the other thing would be to make the season actually a little bit longer in terms of the calendar, add a week or two so that players can get more rest and fewer, back-to-backs, fewer 4 and 5 night type of things.
He is Kevin Broom. He follows the Wizards at the Twitter handle Bullets Forever, as well as at SB Nation's blog, Bullets Forever. Bullets and Wizards together and trying to grow the fan base. Nothing would grow the fan base like a real run here, right? I don't know what more these guys could do on the court than sort of exercise some of these demons, even with the Golden States and the Clevelands this year. And even so much to the point where Charles Barkley is saying that Cleveland doesn't mind being a 2 seed to duck the Wizards. There's some feeling that the Wizards are better than the Celtics, and that would be. I know you don't want to jump to that because there's still going to be a first-round thing to get through for everybody here. But it is a fascinating, logjam amongst these teams as to who's going to be where, because everyone perceives that Cleveland's still going to win this thing.
Yeah, Cleveland's got LeBron, and he's the best player in the East for sure, and. He is built for the playoffs. He's a monster in the playoffs. And so I think teams will want to avoid them. That said, on my podcast, Becker and Broom, with my pal Ben Becker, we talked about the idea that, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the idea that some of these teams in the East could jockey so that they avoid the Wizards and, jockey their playoff position. And it could be that that's what Cleveland is doing. The Wizards have given them a couple of last few times they've played, they've been really competitive battles. Best game of the NBA season was probably that Wizards-Cleveland overtime game where LeBron banks that fall away.
It didn't have a happy ending, as I remember it, Kevin. Yeah, that was not happy.
But that was a hell of a game, and so it makes sense to me that Cleveland might prefer to delay playing the Wizards for as long as they can, and even hope that somebody else bumps them off. Like I've said it before, that there's nobody in the East that's head and shoulders better than the Wizards. They're, Cleveland's a little bit better. Maybe they get better in the playoffs, but, maybe the Wizards do too. Porter, Beal, Wall all have histories of playing better or playing extremely well in the playoffs. And so, I'd like the Wizards' chances against anybody in the East.
With the Orioles playing the Red Sox for a couple days here this week, I've had some Boston people on, and Bob Ryan, no one's covered the Celtics longer than him. He thinks the Celtics are a very flawed team, and he thinks that the Wizards would be a matchup for them. Any team that would rebound well would fare well against Boston. They feel like a paper number one, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that part of the reason for that is that they're kind of a non-traditional team, successful team, in that they don't have the guy who seems like the all-world all-star. But then you look at them, they have a bunch of guys who sort of, were cast-offs and not really wanted and were overlooked. Isaiah Thomas being the 60th pick, Jay Crowder being a second-round pick, and a bunch of other guys who are just sort of scrappy and do different things quite well. And so I think that there's a feeling that maybe they're not quite as good as their record says they are. I don't really agree with that. I think that they're actually a really good team, and I think what they've done is collect a bunch of really good basketball players without worrying too much about, this guy has to be 6'2" or 6'8" or 6'7" or whatever the height needs to be. Just get some guys who can play and put them out there, and it turns out that that makes a good team.
Toronto's probably playing the best basketball of anyone, right? They're coming on at a nice time, and Golden State's been trying hard lately too. So there are some teams that are sort of honing this thing to get ready for next week.
Yeah. It looks like Kyle Lowry got back and from his wrist surgery, and he seems to be pretty good. A bunch of these teams seems to be sort of winding up and getting ready just in time for the playoffs. Golden State got back Kevin Durant, so that would be a.
It is amazing how in the same week that all kind of happens, right? These teams sort of reload. It's like, I took March off. What the heck? I was a little injured, but I hope to be playing in June, and June's a long time from now.
Yeah, well, I will say, both those guys had legit injuries.
Sure.
It's just in both cases, they were fortunate that there was enough time in the regular season for them to get healthy, rather than, if Kevin Durant tweaks his knee last week of the season and has to miss the playoffs, that would have really stunk for Golden State fans.
Well, we saw that with Steph Curry last year, what that does when you lose a player then.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they struggled, and he had a couple good games here and there, but he never really was quite the same after that knee injury.
Well, we've had that happen with Wall around here as well, and hope for good fortune. Kevin Broom's covering all things Wizards at Bullets Forever out on Twitter, as well as at SB Nation. You can also follow him personally at Broom_Kevin. That's BROOM, just like the object, no silent E. A lot of Brooms have silent E's, right? I mean, you probably get that, right?
Yeah, a lot of people want to add the E or change my name to Brown or something, but it's just Broom, like Sweep with.
No worries about that. So let's go to the West a little bit and talk about what you're seeing over there. Obviously, Golden State is head and shoulders above everyone, but there is a feeling amongst the Wizards fans that, hey, we saw them, at least hung in there. There's not an intimidation factor that if they were to get there, that it would just fall by the wayside. But, Golden State's going to have their own little road. There's some really good teams out West, some dangerous teams, including Portland.
Yeah, well, I'm not as big sold on Portland as I think. I think Portland is okay. For me, the class of the teams out west, they've got really sort of 6 really good teams. Maybe it's 5. Golden State, of course. San Antonio is good, although they've been up and down lately. Houston is really good. Utah is good. And the Clippers, now that they're finally healthy, they're pretty good too. Their big 3 is pretty good. It's a little bit of a misfit, because Blake Griffin doesn't really, shoot with range, and I think Chris Paul, he shoots the ball a lot. Blake Griffin does, a lot of jumpers and stuff, but he's not that proficient at it, and he doesn't really have 3-point range. And I think a real stretch 4 would be great to go with with Chris Paul. But that said, Chris Paul is one of the best point guards who's ever played, and if they could ever get healthy and get some luck, they could make a deep playoff run, because that's a good team.
Well, if they get past Utah, if that's where it is, they would see Golden State pretty quickly. So we'd find out what their medal is. And at least they're healthier than they were last year, right?
Yeah, they are. And Golden State is really kind of has the Clippers' number. They're in Golden State's. They're in the Clippers' head, and the Clippers have even talked about that they have to do something to, get the intimidation factor that they have with Golden State out of their heads, because they know that it's a detriment to them actually defeating them. That said, I think the odds are that it's going to be Golden State coming out of the West, and whoever comes from the East is going to have a tough time, because that is a formidable team.
Well, it would be something if the Wizards at least got to the finals and got the better of LeBron or whomever they would see. But the next few weeks will be interesting. I'm loading up my remote control batteries at this point, Kevin, and I got the Caps, I got the Orioles, I got the Wizards. We got plenty going on around here. Down in D.C., they're watching the Nationals too, poor suckers. But we're trying to figure it all out up here in April and May, and hope for a nice little long run. Great having you on, man. We'll send everybody out to Bullets Forever to follow your journey, as well as at SB Nation. I know you will be up late at night every night watching some hoops.
Absolutely. That's what I do pretty much every night. So, yeah.
Kevin Broom, you can also follow him out on Twitter at Broom_Kevin and Bullets Forever. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in shape, and we've had great weather to start the week, so it won't always be bikini season around here, but while it is, make sure you're checking out Planet Fitness. Get yourself in good shape for the coming months down the ocean and all that. Any breaking news will happen first on your WNST text service. That's brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. We're waiting the NFL schedule out, not that fake thing they put out Monday night, although some people were like, hey, I want to go to Miami. I'm like, it's the second preseason game. You don't want to go to Miami. You want to go to Nashville. You want to go to Green Bay. You want to go to Oakland. You want to come to London with us. If you do, it's the Road Trips tab at WNST.net. We are offering discounts this year for anyone who's been on our trips over the last 22 years now. We've been doing road trips. Over 18,000 people have been on our WNST road trip. So we're ramping up Green Bay and Nashville. We'll get that out the second that it's all ready. And you can always send me an email. We'd love to have you with us. It's what we do. Take people on the road, have a good time. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. I am a very available individual. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.